All across the Greek world, populist military dictators, tyrants, backed by these citizen armies, grabbed power from traditional elites. Ironic that in Athens, the path to democracy was smoothed by tyranny.
Tyrannos is a Near Eastern word, which initially referred to relatively benign rulers who were sometimes even supporters of the common people. But as time went by, the Greek tyrants started to live up to the name as we understand it. From the 5th century BC to the present day, tyrant has become synonymous with an abuse of power.
By the end of the 6th century, Athens could no longer tolerate the vindictive regime of the tyrants. They were expelled by a group of aristocrats who began fighting amongst themselves. It was this conflict that would help spark democracy. On the one side, Isagoras, backed by Athens' rivals Sparta. On the other was Cleisthenes, who desperately needed a tactic to counter his enemy's military muscle.
Cleisthenes came up with a shocking plan. He appealed to the mob, the rabble, hoi polloi as they're called in Greek. The historian Herodotus tells us that Cleisthenes welcomed into his faction the ordinary people.
If you are a member of the elite, you thought the people were not the people as a whole. It's the masses, it's the unwashed masses, the mob. Democracy was power of the poor people over the rich.
Now hope was stalking the streets of Athens. The people had tasted power, and although power is relatively easy to hand out, it is almost impossible to take away.
When the aristocrats tried to impose their power, the people rioted and stormed the Acropolis. They overthrew their rulers, and without knowing it or planning it, democracy was born. What had begun as one man's solution to a problem would turn in the next 50 years into a completely new system of government. No one knew that what had been invented was the first direct democracy. At the time of Cleisthenes, the concept didn't even exist. The word democracy comes from demos, people, and kratos, power or grip. Mind you, it caught on pretty quickly. Within a couple of generations, the word was everywhere, and soon the city would worship democracy as a goddess.
Democracy is an extraordinary surprise. They didn't replace one set of rulers with another set of rulers, as has happened for thousands of years in the West. They said, no, actually, why don't we try something extraordinary? We can rule ourselves.
In a world controlled by kings and cliques, the Athenians created, almost by accident, a remarkable experiment in direct popular rule. And they transformed their city specially to house the new system. Opposite the Acropolis, people would assemble on the hill of the Pnyx. Any citizen was allowed to attend, and a vote of the assembly was law. The assembly was chaired not by career politicians, but by ordinary citizens chosen at random for a term of 1 month. They were put up at state expense in the circular tholos. Next door was the council chamber, where 500 ordinary citizens met each day. It was their job to prepare the agenda for the assembly back on the hill of the Pnyx. If we were to follow Athens' example, we would have a different prime minister each month, selected by lot, and we would all take our turn in parliament. They didn't elect people to make decisions for them. They ruled and were ruled in turn.
Was this section excavated?
We have reason to believe that this is one of the law courts.
Archaeologists have unearthed tangible proof of the Athenian pursuit of equality.
Because of this incident,
They found an Athenian ballot box.
when it was excavated, little bronze discs like this, 7 of them were found, and they carry an inscription on them, as you can see. They say, public ballot. And you as a juror in the law courts would be given 2 of these, one with a solid axle and one with a pierced axle.
One disc represented a vote for guilty and the other for not guilty.
You would hold them so people couldn't see which way you were voting, throw one into the ballot box, and a verdict would be arrived at.
Fantastic. A lot of thought has gone into this, hasn't it?
Yeah, they want to make sure that the jurors don't feel coerced in any way.
Yeah, so plenty of checks and balances.
It has to be a secret ballot. The courts are tremendously important for the functioning of the democracy.
Yeah. Mind you, I'm a woman, so I wouldn't have been allowed to vote.
That's true.
I'll do it now.
To make sure that the jurors were fairly chosen, brilliant technology was devised.
This is called a clariterion, and it was a random selection machine. Now, how it works is that individual citizens would have their names inscribed onto metal tags that would then be inserted into each of these slots. Down the side here, there would have been a wooden chute, which of course hasn't survived over the millennia, and down the chute would be sent black and white marble balls. If your name lined up with either a black or a white marble ball, it meant that you were or you weren't going to be selected that day. And because this process happened every day that there was democratic business to be done, it was impossible to bribe jurors or to pull rank so that you were always chosen. It shows just how important equality and fair play was to the early democracy.
In theory, you can be the magistrate that proposes a law, you can sit in the assembly and vote for the law, and then 4 months later you could be sitting on the jury that's going to decide how it's to be interpreted or if it's even constitutional. You can hold any office in the state.